Hey guys, welcome back to another coronavirus quarantine cooking show. Today, I, Nancy the Baker, am going to make you some very delicious chocolate chip cookies filled with Nutella. I know, it's a lot, but hey, we're gonna get used to it. Alright, so now let's get on and make them, shall we? The first thing we're going to do is make our little Nutella bits that'll go into each of our cookies, because after all, we're making stuffed Nutella chocolate chip cookies. Now the thing is, the best size would be 1 tablespoon. However, Nutella is super hard to measure because it is super sticky. So I have 2 spoons and I'm just going to make little bits. And we're going to put that on top of parchment paper on a sheet pan. So we have gotten our successful 1 teaspoon measurements of Nutella. So now what we're going to do is put it in our freezer for an hour so that then they can harden and then they'll be easier to work with. Let's do that. Now while that is freezing, we are going to make our cookies. The first thing we're going to do is melt some butter on a top of a stove pan. Here I have 1 cup of butter. Now butter acts as our emulsion. So what I also like to do is melt my butter, because then it will be a lot easier to melt the sugar that goes into the cookie. One thing that I had realized while I was baking cookies was that when I didn't melt the butter in some recipes that I had made, that the sugar would continue on to the bite of the actual cookie when it was done baking, and you would have granules of sugar in the cookie. And it's like, no, that's not what you want, you know? You want it to be smooth, and you don't really want any granules of anything in the cookie. So I realized that when I melted the butter, it was a different story. Whereas if I melt the butter, the heat of the butter will melt the sugar, and then you won't have that crunch, you know? But cookies are supposed to be chewy, not crunchy. Although some cookies are really good at mastering that crunch. Like, if you've ever had Tate's before, I love those cookies. And so now we want this to become a little bit browned, so we're kind of burning the butter a little bit, but not that much, because if you burn the butter too much, then it will be very tasteless. And as you can see, that kind of burnt butter look is coming, that color, that kind of like nutty color, and now it is looking basically good. Just a little bit more. Alright, and now it is looking good. It has that nutty color to it, so now I'm going to take it off the fire. Alright, so we have taken it off the fire, and has that nice nutty color to it. And so now we're going to add our sugars to a bowl, and then we're going to put our amazing browned butter. Over here, I have half a cup of white sugar and 3/4 cup of brown sugar. And what I'm going to do is now add my browned butter that is still very hot in the center right there. And look at that, I told you it had that nice nutty color to it. And now I'm going to use this whisk right here. And we're going to incorporate all of the sugar into the melted butter. And all we're doing here is just melting that sugar so that then we can have that nice texture in that cookie, the chewy one. And as you can see, the texture of this mix has completely changed. We don't have any more sugar granules, and it looks a lot smoother. Actually, there's still a few on the bottom of the surface. That's why we're going to continue mixing it for a little longer. So we can get everything out of here. The other thing that also helps with melting the butter is not only melting the sugar so that then it can have this nice consistency, but also when you're going to add your eggs won't be added in when your butter is too hot. So the sugar will kind of more or less take away the temperature, the hot temperature of the melted butter, and then this will become room temperature so that then we can add our eggs and there won't be any issues. Because if you were to add eggs into this hot mixture, then you would probably have a problem. Alright, and this is perfect. This right here is exactly what we want. And so now what we're going to do is add 2 eggs. Now, when cracking eggs, you always want to crack one into a separate bowl and see if it's okay. Because sometimes you can get a bad egg, and then if you add your bad egg into your actual product, then, well, you're gonna have to restart because it's a bad egg. So, do one at a time. Now just mix this up all together, adding in 1 egg at a time. So our first one, just add it in there. And after that, we're going to add a splash of vanilla. Just like that. And just mix that up. Great. This is looking really good. And now we're going to add our dry ingredients. Ooh, this looks really good. That consists of 2/3 cups of flour. Make sure you aerate your flour. Aerating the flour ensures that you didn't get too much flour with your proper measurements. And to the flour, we're also going to add 1 teaspoon of baking soda. And this is our leavening agent. Baking soda, what will do to the cookie is it'll make it more flaky and it'll give it that nice texture to it. And it'll also help it rise. When it's baking in the oven, that is. And then now we're not going to mix these ingredients anymore with a wire whisk, but we are going to fold it with a spatula because now we're using flour, and when you are mixing flour, you never use a whisk because then a lot of the content will get stuck in the whisk and then it'll be impossible to get out. So just make your life easier, use a spatula. And I also did this in a really small bowl. And look at that, that consistency has completely changed. This is looking so good. And the last ingredient we're going to add is 1 cup of chocolate chips. I'm using the mini ones just so that then it can incorporate into the dough much better. And once all of the ingredients have been incorporated, now we're going to refrigerate this for 30 minutes so that then it can get hard and stiff, and then we can start forming our cookies. Alright guys, now After this has chilled for 30 minutes, which it has, we're now going to make our cookies. So, I got myself a spoon. I'm going to roughly make my cookies. Now I got kind of a bigger spoon, so I would say maybe 3 tablespoons would be the right amount. And then what I'm going to do now is flatten my cookie. And then make sure it gets off nicely. Look at that. Completely flattened. Now the reason why we use the small chips was because then it would be a lot easier to work with when we are going to put in our Nutella and roll up our cookies. And actually, let me go get that really quickly. There is our Nutella. And so what we're going to do is take 1 Nutella teaspoon and cover up the Nutella with the cookie. Make sure it gets all around. And look at this, guys. It looks completely normal. Right? Look at that. So cool. But here comes a close-up for better, so you guys can actually see what's going on. And now just continue to do this to the rest of your cookies. These look so good. Alright guys, here I have my cookies. These are actually really big, so be mindful of that. You don't need to worry if they're overly dramatically sized, because they're supposed to be. And they look really good on this pan. So now what we're going to do is put them in a 350 degree oven, and we're going to bake them for 10 to 12 minutes. Now, what will happen to those cookies in the oven, you may be wondering? Well, they will get what is called the Maillard reaction. The reaction occurs at 315 degrees Fahrenheit, and it happens where it gives foods a really good color to them. Kind of like, let's say, a Thanksgiving turkey. After it's been in the oven for so long, you know, just soaking up all the heat, then it has that nice color on the top that makes it distinctively that Thanksgiving feel. So that's kind of what's going to happen to these cookies with the Maillard reaction taking in place. And by the way, the Maillard reaction in simpler terms is when proteins and sugars are together, then they break apart and then rearrange again. Alright guys, and here we are. Look at these delicious chocolate chip cookies stuffed with Nutella. This one kind of broke a little bit. As you can see, there's that dip in the center, and some Nutella just decided to come out. But that is okay, because these ones look intact. And so I'm going to grab one of these and a glass of milk, and I'm going to enjoy. OMG. Look at this. Oh my god, look at that. Look at that. Alright, I'm dipping it in the milk. Let's see. Oh my god, this is so good. I'm gonna get a little bit of Nutella in it. Wow. It is a lot of sugar, I will say that, but this is totally worth it. I don't know what you're doing. I'm not making this. This is really good. I mean, the Nutella kind of melted perfectly in the chocolate chip cookie, and the cookie's also not too underbaked. I'll leave you guys with me eating the chocolate chip cookie with Nutella in it.